Did NXT Takeover stand and deliver? Stand and deliver? Well, I think it partially did. There were definitely some things I did like, and there were definitely some things I didn't like. So let's get one of the things I didn't like over with early. On the pre-show, we had Zoe Stark, the new girl of NXT. She went one-on-one with my girl from the land down under, the Lightning Thunder, Toni Storm. And in typical WWE fashion, when it comes to treating their Australian talents, Toni Storm would lose this match via a roll-up. Zoe Stark would win the match, and they only gave her this win because she's been on a 3-match losing streak. They only gave her this win because she was on a 3-match losing streak, and secondly, they wanted to give her a feather in her cap that she pinned a former UK Women's Champion. That's really the whole point of this was. And it's stupid. Toni Storm is 25 years old, and some people are saying to me, well, they're not pushing her because she's 25 years old. Friggin' Sasha Banks, just gonna say this isn't a shot at Sasha Banks. Friggin' Sasha Banks is 29 years old, and she's got 9 championships at the age of 29. 9 championships at the age of 29. Just saying. Age shouldn't matter. Toni Storm should be one of the top talents on NXT. She should be up there competing for the main championship. If you're not going to treat her like a legitimate star, then just send her to the main roster. Send her up to the main roster. Put her on SmackDown. Put Toni Storm on SmackDown and have her face Sasha Banks for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Sure, she wouldn't win, but hey, I would love to see Toni Storm on SmackDown. Pete Dunne. Pete Bum, as I call him. He faces off against Kushida. And Pete Dunne would win this match. I didn't really pay attention to this match. I didn't really care for this match. Pete Dunne would win. Of course he does. He's another one of Vince's boys. Oh, not Vince's boys. What's his name? Triple H. Another one of Triple H's boys. Pete Dunne. Don't know what he sees in Pete Dunne. Then we get the 6-man gauntlet eliminator. Leon Ruff, Eli Swerve Scott, Cameron Grimes, Dexter Lumis, LA Knight, and Bronson Reed in a 6-man gauntlet eliminator, and the winner would receive an NXT North American Championship match on night 2. Leon Ruff and Eli Swerve Scott started this match off. Quite surprised they're not in the Cruiserweight division, especially Scott. I know Leon Ruff is a former North American champion, but I would rather put those two guys in the Cruiserweight division because the Cruiserweight division does need some Cruiserweights. But hey, you know, not many people enjoy the Cruiserweight division nowadays anyway, so maybe it's for the best. But anyway, the first person eliminated, as far as I know, was Dexter Lumis, which kind of surprised me, because he was my pick to win. I expected Dexter Lumis to win the whole thing, because he, you know, is feuding with Johnny Gargano. I thought because it made sense for him to win, because he was in the middle of a feud with Johnny Gargano. LA Knight, I swear to God, there's just something about this LA Knight guy, or Eli Drake, whatever his name is. This guy just comes off so egotistical, it makes me not like the guy. And yes, he's a heel and he's doing his job. Cameron Grimes is the same thing. I cannot stand Cameron Grimes. Not because he's a heel, it's because there's just something about this asshole that I just do not like. Cameron Grimes sucks. So Cameron Grimes, thankfully, he didn't win. LA Knight didn't win. Leon Ruff didn't win. came down to Bronson Reed and Eli Swerve Scott. And to my shock and amazement, the Tsunami gives Bronson Reed the victory. And my boy from the land down under, Bronson Reed, gets the win. My boy from Adelaide, Australia, gets a victory, and he will receive a North American Championship opportunity. He is not going to win. I am not convinced Bronson Reed is going to win. I would love it if he would win, but he's dealing with Triple H's boy, Johnny Gargano. Triple H's boy, his love child, his golden goose. He's dealing with Triple H's golden goose. And I guarantee you, what's his name? Austin Theory will get involved. He will make sure Johnny retains. I'm not convinced Bronson Reed is going to win tomorrow. I'm not convinced. He is dealing with Triple H's love child, Johnny Gargano, his boy. His boy that he absolutely refuses to move to the main roster. That's how much he loves Johnny Gargano. He refuses to send that guy up to the main roster. That's how much he loves him. I am hoping Bronson wins tomorrow, but I'm not convinced. Walter, he defends against Tommaso Ciampa. This turned out to be a decent match. Tommaso lifted Walter for the fairy tale ending, which was very surprising. And Walter would win with a chop to the chest. You have Tommaso go down to a chop, but yet a splash, a power bomb couldn't beat him. A power bomb couldn't beat Ciampa. A splash off the top rope couldn't beat Ciampa. But a simple chop to the chest does. I don't know why that sounds so silly. Now, I know that's a part of Walter's gimmick. He loves chopping people. I know that's his whole gimmick. That's the whole point of what Walter does. But never in my life I have ever seen a superstar lose to a chop. Charlotte Flair's been chopping for years. Ric Flair's been chopping for years. And not once they ever win with a chop. I just think winning with a chop is kind of silly. Because it's not really a move that you would use to win matches with. I know it's, different. And yes, I get it. It's a part of Walter's character. But if a powerbomb couldn't beat Ciampa and a splash couldn't, but a chop did, I don't know. I think the ending, to me, just scratched my head. Walter's been champion for 2 years. And that's mainly because of the pandemic. All the United Kingdom champions, Kaylee Ray, and what's-his-face, Jordan Devlin, they've all been champions because of the pandemic not allowing them to travel. That's kind of the main reason. We can't say they've been good champions. Kaylee Ray, I can, because she actually did have some defenses before, the pandemic hit. But mostly you think they're not good champions because of the pandemic. And I think that's people need to realize. Like, people talk about their title reigns like it's impressive. Now, yes, I would say if there was no pandemic, there was no COVID-19, and Walter and Kaylee Ray went on and became champions the same amount of days they have now, but there was no pandemic and there was no COVID, then I'd say they'd have a dominant run. But because they've been sitting around most of all of last year, because they sat around most of last year because of what happened with COVID, I can't really say they've been good champions because, they've been sitting around mostly because of COVID. And yes, that's not their fault. And I get that. That ain't their fault. But I'm just trying to say, in a respectful manner, just because they've been champions for so long doesn't mean it's impressive. I'm not impressed with Walter being champion for so long. He's only been champion for so long because of the pandemic. Sorry, not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. Now that he's allowed back on American soil, even though I'm Australian, hopefully he does eventually lose it eventually. MSK, Wes Lee, and Nash Carter, they face, this is actually this is for the vacated tag team titles because Danny Burch got injured. They take on Grizzly Young Veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson and Legado del Fantasma of Ralph Mendoza and Jacqueline Wilde. Now, do I feel like this whole match was predictable? Yes. I feel like this was predictable because I think we all knew MSK were winning. Now, do you think they could have made it, look like maybe the Grizzles could have won or Phantasma? Yes. They did have some good moments where it looked like the other team was going to win, but I think from the very beginning, I think most fans would have say to you, yeah, we all expected MSK to win. Now, one of my complaints is I've heard people say is they call Wes Lee and Nash Carter the flip-flop tag teams, like those your typical high-flying team that just does nothing but high-flying maneuvers and high spots. That kind of reminds me of the Young Bucks. Kind of does. Now, some of you may say, why are you talking about the Young Bucks? You've never seen the Young Bucks wrestle. Actually, I have. I did watch a New Japan show once, and they were on there. So, yes, I have seen the Young Bucks compete. Just letting you guys know. I have seen them wrestle once. And their style is similar to Wes Lee and Nash Carter. So their style is very similar to them. And they super kick a lot, like the Usos. So, who would have I preferred to win the match? I figured MSK were going to win just because they won the Dusty Cup. Secondly, I felt like the Grizzly Young Veterans could have been a good choice. Hell, even Legado del Fantasma could have been a good choice. Like, imagine they had them win. Imagine if you had Legado del Fantasma, the one team that nobody believed was going to win. I'm surprised they weren't there to eat the pin. I thought that was the sole purpose of Del Fantasma. I thought the whole purpose of Del Fantasma was to eat the pin to the eventual winner. But no, the MSK pinned the Grizzly Young Veterans. Which surprised the hell out of me. I thought the whole point of Fantasma being there was so that they could eat the pin. Very surprised they weren't there just solely to eat the pin. So that did surprise me. Other than that, MSK, they won. They're the new NXT Tag Team Champions. If high flyers, if these types of wrestlers are your type of wrestlers, yes, you'd be happy for them. I just think, they're just your typical high-flying team that does high spots. Will they be good champions? Yeah, I think they will. So, only time will tell. See what goes on with them. And finally was our main event. Our main event match was Raquel González, taking on Io Shirai. I've always called her Rachel Gonzalez, but I remember once calling her Rachel and people got mad at me for calling her Rachel. It's Raquel. Raquel Gonzalez would go on to win this match. I don't know why, but the commentators call her finisher a one-arm powerbomb. It's a choke slam. It's a choke slam. How am I supposed to believe that's a powerbomb? Because I heard that it was Vic Joseph. When she hit it in the ring, he called it a one-arm powerbomb. And I'm thinking, how is that a powerbomb? How is that a one-arm powerbomb? She didn't put Io in between her legs. She didn't lift her up with one hand and then slam her down. It's clearly a chokeslam. Because Raquel is a big girl, and big wrestlers do chokeslams. It looked like a chokeslam to me. And and here's the thing. Whenever you hear the commentators mention that a wrestler has never kicked out of a certain person's finisher, you just know that wrestler is losing. You just know that wrestler's losing because they do that all the time. They do that all the time with a champion who's been champion for so long. They protect the finisher so much. They protect the finisher so much, and then when the rightful person who's going to dethrone them, they kick out of the move. They kick out of the move, and then the person loses. Then the champion loses. But, there is a problem here. There is a major problem here, and a big major botch. You know what I just said? Whenever someone kicks out of a finisher, it normally means they lose the match. Candice LeRae was actually the first person to kick out of the moonsault way before Io even won the title. Candice LeRae actually kicked out of it. So, and you hear the commentators say that no one has ever kicked out of the moonsault, when I clearly remember Candice doing it. Wasn't it when Candice was a babyface? Wasn't that when Candice was still a face? And when Io was the heel? I believe it was then. Can't remember what takeover it was, but I do remember Candice was the face and Io was the heel then. I think it was that takeover. So the fact... Ooh, my throat. So the fact they just ignored Candice being the first person to kick out of Io Shirai's moonsault, I find that a little insulting. I find that a little insulting. Especially towards Io. Now, I would have not had Raquel González as the person to end Io Shirai's reign. The person that lost to Tony Stark should have been the one that ended Io Shirai's run. Tony Storm. Should have been her. Oh, you're only saying it's her. You're only saying you wanted it to be her because she's Australian. No, other than her being Australian, she's a damn good wrestler. She's a freaking star. Tony's a star. Not just because she's Australian, she's a star. She should be treated as a star, a main event player in NXT. But she's losing to jobbers like Zoe Stark. Swear to God, if this was Toni Storm on the main roster and she lost to Dana Brooke, everybody would be quickly jumping on the internet saying that she's buried. Raquel should not have been the one to beat Io. It should have been Tony. Tony or Candice. Candice would have been a good choice too. But it's Raquel. Also, I saw a video on WWE.com. It was on their YouTube page. It was what happened to Io after the show went off the air. Io was waving goodbye. She was blowing kisses. She was bowing in the ring. She kissed the NXT mat. And she walked away. Now, that ultimately means one thing. She's going up to the main roster. Why have her wave goodbye, bow in the ring, kiss the ring, and leave, and she remains in NXT? That makes no sense. That wouldn't make any sense. So to me, Io Shirai is moving up to the main roster. After 304 days as the NXT Women's Champion. Now, everybody will have their opinion on Io Shirai's run. Some will say it was the best title run, and some will say she's the greatest champion in NXT. Everybody has their opinion. Here's mine. I thought her reign was decent. I think the problem with her was, I think my main issue with her was that she didn't have a lot of people to face. They had her versus Candice a couple of times. They had her face Shotzi, who I didn't think was ready at the time. Toni Storm, the person that should have ended her run. They put her up against Dakota. I think Dakota was her first title defense as champion. So, I don't know. I just don't think it's as good as people say. And again, this is just my opinion. I don't think Io's run is as good as what everybody labeled it. Okay? So I don't think it's as good as how people labeled it. So tomorrow is night 2 for NXT, and so I'm very much looking forward to what's going to happen on night 2. Night 2 has got Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon defend the tag team titles, NXT women's tag team titles, against The Way. Praying for The Way to win here. I want to see Indy Hartwell, another fellow Australian. She's from where I'm from, Melbourne. Pulling for her to win the titles here with Candice. Devlin and Escobar to determine the Cruiserweight Champion, the undisputed Cruiserweight Champion. I don't want to see that douchous Jordan Devlin as my champion. I would rather Santos Escobar. I actually like Santos. I think he's been a good champion. From the matches I've seen him have, he's a very solid wrestler. Bronson Reed, he'll be challenging Johnny. Pulling for Bronson, but I highly doubt he will win. Not against Triple H's boy, Johnny Gargano. Adam Cole and Kyle, they'll have a pretty good unsanctioned match. I'm actually thinking Kyle will win that. And I'm thinking Karrion will win the NXT Championship from Finn. So there you go. A little quick predictions for night 2 here on this review. So I hope you guys enjoyed this review, guys. And I will see you guys tomorrow for night 2.